Hello, welcome to my attic. I feel like this is such a overused and broad topic. Most of the time when I see it, I get very disappointed because at the end, it always just ends with the stereotypes of women that then gets translated into the stereotypes of Filipinos in general. I also don't know to the extent of like which parts of my research and looking into this that I've missed, and hopefully somebody watching out there can broaden this conversation with me. I want to start off with Zizek's idea of perversion, which is that basically his idea is that this type of perversion comes from a lack of clarity. And in the postmodern capitalist society, there is this illusion that we have the ability to live our lives based on our own merit, that basically if something doesn't work out, it is our fault, we are too lazy, we are too this, we are too that, rather than zooming out and understanding it from the perspective of how does history and the subjection of women play into this. And I'd like to get a little bit into that. So with this idea of perversion, here's my notes. With this idea of perversion, it is, you see that? I just kind of want to use this instead. So perversion, which I covered in postmodern society, we are basically, this gives birth to how we look for someone to delegate how we live, because we might feel like we don't have enough agency, we might not have enough understanding, we might not have enough resources to even go about how to achieve our dreams and aspirations in life. And then we look towards figures of authority. The figure of authority is the most perverted. So in this context of Filipino women and the stereotypes that come with it, and usually how not only have these stereotypes been perpetuated by foreigners, it also benefits them. Let's start a little bit about the historical context. So I also put here how monotheism, actually I'm just going to put this on the screen, it's probably easier. Monotheism gives birth to perversion, which is then, like I mentioned, is then connected to our cultural zeitgeist and the subjection of women. With that idea, we could understand that from our historical roots, the Spanish colonialism brought in this image of womanhood, image of a woman. Think Maria Clara from Noli, and then which became the standard of Filipino virtue. So the characteristics of Maria Clara, which I have here, is that she is modest, she's self-sacrificing, she's devoted, and she's quiet. She's basically reserved. And now in the 20th century, the labor economy, we are now exporting labor as economic strategy. So the Filipinos are now equal shareholders of the workforce, where we see domestic helpers, nannies, nurses, caregivers being shipped, Filipino women being shipped to Middle East, Hong Kong, parts of Asia, parts of Europe, North America. This then has been monetized by the marriage industry, so think of mail order brides in the 1970s, and now it's even more prevalent, this like sales pitch. Like if you go on YouTube right now and you type up Filipino woman, it will be AI videos of, if you're a foreigner, if you only have $500 per month from your pension, you could easily live in the Philippines with a Filipino, live in your means and live like a king. That's basically the rhetoric, that's now the sales pitch. It is now the Filipino woman has to be equipped with the lifestyle, the way that you want to live. So and it's obviously disturbing, if I go back home, I see like a young teenager, she looks like a teenager, with somebody's grandfather. Like, I see videos of like the red light district in Manila a lot, and it's so disturbing. It makes me cringe. I don't blame the woman for it. It's obviously supply and demand, but it is important to understand why this happens. It's disheartening that this could obviously just be fixed easily if our governments gave opportunities to women, like education, healthcare, jobs. So part 2 is the traits that are misunderstood as submissive. Why I wanted to film this video was because I saw this video of how people are connecting the movie Obsession to Filipino women, and the comments are just white guys being like, oh, this is just regular day with my Filipino wife, that she's this or that. And then Filipino women are also commenting like, why are you exposing me? So now there are 2 different stereotypes where we have where you could either be submissive, or you could either just be a fierce Latino, which is the term that they want to use. But both are still confined to how a man perceives you, how a man wants you to fit their lives. Basically, they're on the same spectrum. They don't meet in the middle. They're examples of 2 extremes, but they're still there. I will give one example. Another video that I saw was about the Tagalog word tampo, which is giving the silent treatment when somebody hurts you. In Bisaya, we say luod ng luod. I find that this is a gap between cultures, because from a Filipino standpoint, I don't see this as silent treatment. We are very overly communicative with how much we appreciate or how much we dislike somebody. So when we withhold, it means that basically the thoughts are, I thought you cared about me, how could you put me in this situation? And the fact that you don't even understand what we did is the problem. I don't think that it's toxic. I think really it's a display of boundaries. It's a display of how your betrayal has affected me, that I don't feel safe enough to communicate this with you, because why would I? But I see how this is mistranslated, miscommunicated by Filipino Americans. I don't have beef with Filipino Americans, but it's just so obvious that most of the thinking comes from like stereotypes like these, where they use it towards their families. Like, if I don't do something right, my family will just not talk to me. But it's true. If you care about somebody, you have enough cognitive dissonance to understand how your actions affected them, and to communicate over and over and over communicate. I feel that it's such a psyop. It's such a, I think that it was such a misleading take to convince women that if we just overly communicate how we feel, it might solve the problem, rather than understanding that speaking and over communicating doesn't do anything to someone that doesn't want to listen. You know what I mean? Another stereotype I have here is naulo. What's the Tagalog word for naulo? Nahihiya, where basically, you know, like, it's almost similar to the Japanese women who are like this, who are so shy, who doesn't want to speak up. I don't think that like, the fact that this stereotype even exists is really funny to me, because I don't even feel like I should even go down the line of the examples that I have, because it's just kind of silly. I would rather talk about why it exists. Frankly, it exists because it benefits the men who are coming into these countries and would like to live a better life, because they will not be able to do it at their home country, because either they don't have the funds, or they don't want to deal with Western women who are either more powerful, more educated, who have the means to challenge these men. It's the similar take not just with, race. It's also I also think the same about how if you are an older man and you would rather be with somebody much younger than you, it typically means that you don't want to be challenged. Because if you are with somebody your age, or somebody closer to your age at least, it means that you leave room for critical engagement, for your actions to be examined, because we're not perfect. And I think like there are just some men that don't want to be rattled off of the cage that they've built for themselves, and rather they would want women to suffer with them, to embarrass them, because they don't want to confront the issues that they caused themselves. I think that I will wrap this up on why it continues really quickly. I think this continues not only because of tourism. I really wanted to start this video based on the beautification problem with the Philippines, on Philippine governments, on how our architecture, our public spaces, places of tourism, even our houses are built for a palatable appetite for foreigners or for colonizers. Like when our architecture was built, let's say Manila and the urban cities, they didn't have the Filipinos in mind. They had foreign investors and political dynasties, and they were the ones not only calling the shots, but they were the ones that were instilling their vision of the country and not including the Filipinos. They didn't have a seat at the table to advocate on what a good environment would look like for them. And I say this because now it's even easier for foreigners to move to the Philippines because they work remotely, or most of the time back then it was usually just retirees, but now it's so easy for remote workers or influencers to just move to the Philippines and make a living there. And this causes a problem when it comes to Filipino women who have, again, no means to be educated, to have their own business, to have the means to live the life that they want without depending on a man. And it's so easy to say I can't blame them because it's supply and demand, but it's also disheartening. It's disheartening that obviously, like, if this issue was fixed or was addressed by our government, then this wouldn't be such a big issue. But obviously it's still here, and I think that the shift on how women are supposed to be, it's the same thing of how women are expected to follow trends. On 5 years it's BBLs, this year is anorexia. There's always two extremes that a woman is expected to follow. I don't know if it's because we lack the agency or because I don't know what it is. Maybe it is, sometimes in your early 20s you understand that, I don't really have the agency to live my life, so that's why we have trad wives who would rather depend on a man, because sometimes living and growing up is more frightening. But at the end, you now see Filipinos who are left with children, who were left with children, who practiced unsafe sex, who now have disease, who don't have the means to take care of the child because the guy left. I remember watching this documentary about how Koreans go to the Philippines, have sex with these Filipino women by force, by payment, etc. I don't know what they get into, but I don't know the suffering that they've caused to the extent that I would like, but I do know that it's very prevalent that foreigners go to the Philippines and they use the resources, they use the land, they use the women, they use the fact that they're so entitled enough that their money can buy materials that they wouldn't be able to afford in their own country. And it perpetuates this problem, because there's also another stereotype that if you, as a Filipina, you don't have anything going on in your life, you should just marry an American or a foreigner and you'll be safe and you'll be able to provide for yourself and your family. I don't think that, I think challenging this comes in two ways. One way is that understanding that nobody is coming to save you, especially a foreigner. And I think it's really instilled in us, especially in war. You know, think of MacArthur. Think about the war and how it was almost a propaganda to say that we wouldn't have won without the help of others in other countries, which is completely false. And it comes with challenging those thoughts. And I understand that if you are in a country like mine who does not afford a woman a chance, then it's really hard for us to even just take a step back and think about our actions, because we're too busy surviving, we're too busy trying to put food at the table. And I also don't want to just put the pressure on the women that are the victims. I also think that it's also a systematic problem with the patriarchy on how men look at women as a means, how they subject them and forge them into whoever they'd like them to be, because they might not, one, know who they are entirely, so they'd rather depend on someone. So it's almost this relationship works because one person, the woman, doesn't know how to get to where she wants to. The man doesn't know who he is, so he depends on this woman for, I don't know, sometimes we see those videos about how men latch on to women and after they break up, he takes all of her personality. I think about that a lot in terms of this this relationship with the white man, Filipino woman. And it's disheartening. It's also disheartening that our government allows this, that there is a prevalent, and there's almost like this space for it to be allowed. If you go down Panglao, for example, you see that the bar workers, the women, are mostly in skimpy outfits, that they're there for the pleasure of a man. It gets rid of, like, say you're on vacation with your family and then you see this, it's almost like, who is this market for? And if the government just did a little bit of market research on the finances on who actually spends their money in the Philippines when they go there, it's not these men. They're looking for the cheapest woman. They're looking for a woman that is easily manipulated, gaslit. They're not there to spend money. They're obviously there because if they attach themselves to these women, they get a huge discount. I go and I spend more money than these men, and it really pisses me off because this cultural idea for Filipinos that if you are a foreigner, you should be treated well, and then your fellow Filipinos shouldn't because you assume that they don't have money. That is how it seeps into our cultural zeitgeist. It seeps into colorism, how we expect people to be, how we expect people to be more demure because our foreigners, the tourists expect us to be. If we are in Siargao, the tourists expect us to be in paradise mode. If we are in other parts of the country, we are almost forced to perform our culture and for their gaze. That is the perversion. The perversion is that we are living, working, breathing for the gaze of the other. That's all. I don't know if I made sense. I hope I did. I hope you liked this video. I hope that I had like a script for this, that I prepared for it better, but I just wanted to get this out of my chest before I left the house. And it's raining a little bit, so I hope that didn't bother you too much. Anyways, thank you. Bye.